What up, y'all? It's Golden Spaces, an Odyssey original podcast. I know the time in between when you're hearing from me and Justin is a little longer, but I think until things maybe heat up a little bit with the off season, you know, maybe you'll get 2 episodes from us a week, but we're right now in the once a week episode, I think. But we will keep you posted on the frequency and let y'all know. But just there hasn't been really enough meaningful stuff, I don't think, to talk about that's Warriors related until today. Because some news did drop yesterday. News I think we were all expecting, Justin. So Bob Myers stepping down as the Warriors GM. So yeah, let's talk about it. So Justin, I mean, like I said, we all kind of expected this. I think this is what everyone thought was happening, or most people. Others may have been hoping he wasn't going to step down. And we've touched on this before. You know, like I sort of made the case that like I'm sorry, like maybe I'm just not like a sentimental enough person, but I don't feel that strongly attached to Bob Myers. Like if he has to step down, he has to step down and the Warriors will continue. Like to me, it's always about Steph in that like the Warriors ceiling is about him, not about who the GM is. So I mean, obviously someone can make really, really awful decisions. So I don't want to like completely dismiss that, but I don't think decisions are going to be made without the input of Stephen Curry is sort of my point. So I just don't expect it to be something so catastrophic, even though I'm not really high on the names I've been hearing, but you know, from everything we know, it sounds like they're trying to keep the core intact. And so, you know, like we've always said, if that core is together, they still got a chance. And they, you know, Stephen Curry is your franchise guy. You for sure got a chance. So, you know, it's just really now a matter of seeing who they're gonna put in Bob's place and what the next moves are. But I'm excited to see what's gonna happen, to be honest, or maybe curious is a better word. But you know, I feel like this is gonna be a big off season for the Warriors. And so I'm excited about the NBA finals, which we'll get to, but I'm also excited to see what's going to happen for my team. And so, I'm waiting in anticipation.
Yeah, same. I think a lot of people are just kind of nervous when it comes to change, any major change having to do with anything. So people are going to be a little bit nervous and anxious about Bob stepping down, and people fear the unknown, so they don't know if someone's going to step in and be able to make those right decisions or not. Um, and you think about all the things, everything that Bob has meant to guys like Draymond and Steph, and just the relationships that they built outside of basketball, and how that potentially helped them, all go on one accord, or at least try to be on one accord, um, and how that dynamic can potentially change now. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like I'm not like I don't feel strongly in either way about it. Like I'm not happy that he stepped down. I'm not sad or angry, anything like that. It's just something new, and I am excited to see what they have in store next, and potentially see how they can probably like change some things, or how they go about some things. So, like you said, it's a big off season, and whether Bob was there or not, it was no guarantee that he was going to be making all the best decisions or all the worst decisions. It's just they know big decisions need to be made, and I'm excited to see them try to piece this thing back together and put together a championship group again. So, is thanks Bob. That's kind of
Thank
how like
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like how I feel about it. It's like best of luck on your next endeavor. Thanks for what you've done, but it is what it is, bro. Like
Appreciate you. Flowers all
yeah.
around, but
Right.
yeah, for sure. I'm just like I don't know. It's but look, this kind of goes back to like, you know, and look, I get the people who say, oh, when things go well, it's credit the players, but then when it goes bad, you don't want to blame the players, sort of a thing,
Hmm.
which is not true. But it's like, to me, there's an overemphasis on GMs, on coaches, and how much we credit them, and that's why I don't like overly credit either of those two. I think when you hear people talk about, and we'll get into Spo some more later, but when you hear people talk about the greatness of Spo, it's because he's doing amazing things with a roster, and not just this season, but in many years. He's
Mhm.
taking rosters that are not at least perceived to be as talented as others very far. And that's when you look and say, like, look, this is, to me, I and not every coach is going to have that opportunity. I get that, right? So it's not fair, to maybe like a Steve Kerr to say, like, well, we don't know that he couldn't do the same thing, but I don't believe he can, right? And so that's why I think Spo is a superior coach to a Steve Kerr. There are some people who think, okay, but like, he's taking top talent and he can coach and do all of these things, and so you still credit him, and sure, you do, but to me, it's more about the players. Like, I think if you are a solid coach, and if you're a smart enough person, if you have elite talent like that, you'll be able to succeed.
Mhm.
But I don't think you have to be a genius to make Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant,
Mhm.
work. And, you do credit Steve Kerr for realizing that the system that Mark Jackson had probably wasn't the most complementary to Steph's skill set. Great. It was also something he looked at what his college coach did and said, let's do that and build upon it. So someone had already noticed and recognized that Steve Kerr did too. And they put it around Steph, and voila. But it's like, I just think there's like a over, like, without Steve Kerr, without Bob Myers, to me, the second most important piece after the players is Lacob. And it's only because, like, you do need an owner who's going to invest. You do need an owner that's going to pay. You do need an owner who's going to do those things. Because if you have shit owners, um, so with all the flaws Joe Lacob comes with, right? Like, he did empower Bob Myers to spend, because a GM can only do so much as the owner is going to allow him to do, right? And even if it did take some time, some prodding, and Joe was stubborn, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for Bob, Joe did a lot, and he came in and did things that were not popular with the fan base.
Mhm.
And that worked. That worked and proved successful. So, which is why he doesn't want to be told anything. And while it's annoying, I don't blame him. It's like, y'all gonna tell me? I've been making moves that benefit this franchise.
Yeah.
So Joey Lacob probably wants more credit than he deserves. But if I'm looking in pecking order of credit, it's going in that order to the players and to Lacob before I get to, coaches and a GM. I'm sorry, they don't move me in that way.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I give the coaches a little bit more credit, but the GM for me, just like for you, is lower on the totem pole, in terms of impact on the actual product, because the GM's hands are particularly tied to what the owner will allow financially and what the coach will allow strategically and play style wise. So you could go out there and try to get all the talent and players you want, but if the coach isn't going to play them, it doesn't matter. And if the GM doesn't want you to bring a certain guy in because he wants someone that he's invested in to play, or he doesn't want to spend a certain amount of money, then it doesn't matter, right? So the actual GM job, is very is low in comparison to those other things. And I do think there's a different aspect to Bob as far as like people managing, and the whole like manager aspect of it is super important, but it's not like it's super necessary to have a guy that's like buddy with everyone, and he can be the filter from the players to the coach to the owner and all that type of stuff. That stuff is cool, but it's not necessary to win a championship.
It's also not good at times.
Yeah,
I would argue that allowing Draymond Green to be as involved as he is sometimes created a problem,
for
right?
sure.
And so, listen, I'm so fucking tired of hearing about managing relationships with the Warriors.
Hmm.
Like Kurt is a great manager of people. Bob Meyer, like I don't give a fuck about that. You know what I'm saying? Like these are adults, and sometimes, like you need to put them in their place. Like sometimes that's what needs to happen. So I don't want to say that stuff doesn't matter. And let's also keep in mind that Bob was once a former agent. So he has a lot of relationships, and relationship building is important for negotiating. It is. So I don't want to minimize that, as a lawyer and someone who's had to negotiate deals, obviously not the level of Bob Myers, but I've negotiated some pretty notable deals in my life. I just ain't telling y'all all my business. So, it's like having relationships and credibility and all of that stuff matters. But I guess my larger point is that Bob Myers isn't the single sole person in the world that exists with that skill set. So it's less about not that Bob wasn't good at his job, but just like people, it will not, and I'm saying that as someone who was like very upset when the Warriors got rid of Jerry West. It was like, oh my God. And we lived on past Jerry West, and Jerry West hasn't won anything, not because he didn't make great moves with the Clippers, but because their players can't stay healthy. Now, that doesn't mean that they were going to beat the Warriors, but I think we've all sat here and said a healthy Clippers team is a worthy competitor, but we don't get to ever see a healthy Clippers team. So again, it always comes back to the players,
Hmm.
it always comes back to the players. And the Clippers gave up a lot to get Paul George, and so it also maybe hampered what they'll be able to do in the future with two players who, to this point, don't seem to be able to stay healthy enough for postseason runs.
Hmm. Yeah. Like I said, it starts and finishes with your players. Um, either they're good enough or they're not. Either the support you have around them is good enough or it's not.
Right.
Right. And there are some teams that have a ton of talent and their coaches just don't put them in the right position and stuff like that. That I think that's more rare than anything. Right. I don't it's rare that you see a team like that has the best talent in the NBA don't get the job done because of a coach. You know what I mean? Like that's rare. But like I said, it starts and ends with how good your players are, whether they have the talent and the IQ and the experience to do it or they don't. We've seen it with the Celtics. They have more talent than Miami, and they didn't lose because of Joe Mazzulla. They lost because the Heat players played better than they did. Like, you know what I'm saying? Joe Mazzulla isn't completely, absolved from blame, but at the end of the day, if the Celtics players can make better decisions with the ball, they would have won that series. Simple as that.
Yeah. So again, salute to you, Bob. We appreciate you, Bob. I always will love the GOAT comment you made to Kevin Durant. Like, look, we're going to still win without you, but with you,
Yeah. One thing
we can
about
get a lot more. That takes moxie
right.
to say that
One thing about
to
the
a player of
Warriors,
Kevin Durant's stature.
exactly. And one thing about the Warriors, brain trust or whatever, they got bars. They always come with some one-liners that are just like all-time stuff. Like,
Yeah.
what did Joe say the other day? He's like, we're gonna win no matter what the rules
Regardless.
are.
Yes.
Like, that's a bar right there. Like,
And
so
let's talk about Joe because, like, he's sort of like Draymond of ownership. Like, he's like a catch-22, right? Like, you need that egotistical side of him,
mhm.
right? And I mean, if people know anything about venture capitalists, like, this is who they are. They don't get to be in this place without being cutthroat and without extreme confidence in themselves. The same way players have to have extreme confidence, you know? You just have to hope the right person to check Joe Lacob will be in place. And I don't know. I certainly don't think that's going to be his son. And to clarify, his son is not expected to be the next GM, but his son is expected to get more authority and power within the organization, and then you have to wonder if, Mike Dunleavy, who is expected to be the successor of Bob Myers, is just going to be a yes man, and we don't know. We don't know what it's going to be, but Mike Dunleavy leaves a bad taste with the Warriors due to his history with them. So admittedly, we're not happy about him being the potential successor, but we have to wait and see. But I like change. I think change is good sometimes. And I do think it's a good time for change with the Warriors, right? And, sometimes putting a certain player on a team forces a coach to change their approach, right? And I think Kerr does need to be pushed a little into changing his approach. Now, what we don't know with respect to the rest of the Warriors is like, is anything going to change about coaching? Kenny Atkinson was up for a few of these jobs, but I don't think he got the main ones. I don't know if he's a finalist for Phoenix. I don't remember. Check that right now. But some of the others have been, the coaching jobs still available on the market are the Suns and Detroit. Is that it? And Toronto.
I'm not sure if the Wizards is on the market, but
yeah,
I think Doc is going to get Phoenix.
I just think it's remarkable. Like, let me tell you something. I think it's remarkable that Doc Rivers has been granted white privilege as a coach. It's remarkable.
He's been granted KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rondo privilege.
Nah, bro. This is some next level shit. It's some next level shit. The man is objectively not a great coach.
He's flawed. I wouldn't say
he's not a great coach. He's not great. You can't use the word great with him. Solid?
Solid. I think he's better than average for sure.
Yeah, to me, he's like in that Steve Kerr realm, but he's had better talent. So people are gonna. Steve Kerr has had better talent, is what I'm saying. So come on, you had Chris Paul. Like, you're not winning with Chris Paul as your guy, right? So you had Chris Paul. You're just not. You're not. It's not gonna happen. They shouldn't have blown a 3-1 lead, but they were not gonna win with it being Chris Paul, Blake, and whoever. They maybe had like one season where they had a shot, but that wasn't a team that was gonna they weren't gonna do what like Steph and the Warriors did, right? So that wasn't gonna happen. They have a flawed team in Philly, and even still, Philly was never the best team in the East. So none of us, no matter what Doc did, none of us thought Philly could come out, right? So Doc Rivers could have reached higher ceilings, meaning conference finals, right? Like the constant blown leads and shit like that is the problem. But that's why I'm saying he's in the same vein as Kerr. The difference is Kerr had better talent to cover his flaws. Doc doesn't, so his flaws aren't covered. But to me, they are coaches that are like better than average. They're good. I don't think they're great coaches. I really don't. They're good.
I think Steve's a great coach, but
not a great coach.
You were correct about the talent.
I don't know how many things we can critique about Kerr, and y'all keep saying he's great. Like, you're not going to be great to me for something you did 10 years ago. Like, if you can never, ever, like, in the moment, adjust. If you refuse to pay players because of dumb shit like they dunked in game and taunted, because you want to fucking teach lessons, because you're wedded to this old school pop approach to coaching, which ain't going to work with Gen Z and all these other fucking people coming. It's just not. It's not.
That's true.
Like, all these things, y'all credit Steve Kerr for shit that I'm just like, oh, he's good at managing players. It's not even true. Draymond Green tried to fucking fight him. tried to fight him. Kevin Durant left because of him. And I'm not saying that Kevin Durant is not, he comes with his own stuff. But like, what is it that he's managing so well? Draymond Green is out of control. And there's nothing they can do about it. So he didn't manage him well, and neither did anyone in the fucking Warriors or organization. What the fuck is Steve Kerr great at? What? Tell me the thing he is great at.
I mean, he's a great defensive coach for sure. I don't think that.
Then why was their defense ass?
Because they were tiny this year, and they didn't have any good players outside of their starting five. I mean, it's not really much he could do when he has no choice. I mean, he could have played Kuminga more in the playoffs for sure. But as far as the players he trusted, they were just too small to be able to defend at the level they
Brad
need to be
Wanamaker. These are indefensible fucking things. They didn't want to make a move this off in the buyout market because Steve Kerr wasn't going to play the player. That is not a great coach. You're not convincing me someone with that many restrictions is a great coach because it has to be my way, only a certain way for it to work. Someone who's great at something is adaptable. They're adaptable.
That's true.
I'm never going to consider anyone great at something if you can only do it one way. If you can only do it one way, then you're great at a specific thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just a little less adaptable as far as like how quickly he adapts than a guy like Spo, but I do think they're in the
what
same
has Steve
realm.
Kerr adapted to in his coaching?
I mean, he switched up his defensive philosophies and stuff. A lot of that last year.
Did he or did Mike Brown switch them up?
I mean, he's the head coach, so
yes, but Mike Brown left.
Yeah,
and their defense was notably affected.
Their roster was way worse defensively than last year too. But
you get credit for hiring a good staff. That's what I give Steve Kerr for hiring the right people. But like, come on, that defense was all Mike Brown. That wasn't Steve Kerr.
The defense was great before Mike Brown got there too.
Yeah, and who did they have before? Ron Adams, also a great defensive mind.
It's not like they're just telling him. And he's just like, he has a blank slate and they're just telling him what to do. You know what I mean?
No.
You got to give him some credit there, in my opinion.
I give him credit for hiring the right people.
My thing is, if you look at Spo and you look at Kerr, they do a lot of the same stuff as far as the defenses they implement, the offenses they implement. Spo is just more adaptable on the fly than Steve Kerr is. I think that's the biggest difference between those two. And that's what makes Spo arguably a better coach than him, and it makes him.
He also can work with different kinds of players
because he's quicker to adapt than Steve Kerr is. Where Kerr is like, well, I have my guys, and you know what I mean. If Spo had Steph and Clay and Dre, he might be married to the same philosophies as well for extended period of time. Whereas with Spo, it's like he's getting different groups of guys every year because his talent pool isn't the same as the Warriors.
Yeah, but he's not like, don't give me this player because
You're true about that. I mean, you're correct.
Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, come on. Spo had the Heat probably about to get back at a minimum to the Eastern Conference Finals before Chris Bosh goes down. He lost LeBron James. Like, people try to act like, oh, they lost LeBron and just sucked. No, they didn't. They were playing well.
They got killed with injuries. Yeah, that usually happens to LeBron teams that he leaves. They get killed with injuries the next season.
Right. But he didn't say, oh, no LeBron James. We got to tank it in. No Klay Thompson. We can't do anything. Let's fucking suck for a season. Like,
I don't think Kerr did that. I think Joe Lacob did that. I think Joe Lacob did that. And then Kerr, when they finally gave him the free reins to do what he wants, they won 15 out of 20 to end the season.
When they gave him the free reins?
When they said Wiseman is done for a season, you can't play him. Even if you didn't want to, you can't play him. He said, all right, I'm going to play my guys. And they won.
Brad Wanamaker. Don't fucking tell me
Wanamaker that he sucked. He sucked.
He did. And he didn't want to let go of him. He kept playing him.
What was his other choice though?
Not to play him? To put the ball in Steph's hands much earlier? Are we serious? He could have done that earlier. There were points that Wiseman was hurt earlier in the season before they shut him down. That Kerr could have done that, and he didn't lean into that. So don't tell me it's because but that was not it, because he had opportunities to do that and did not, Justin. You know damn well he likes having some fucking point guard to sit there and do that old school bullshit style of basketball. Nico Mannion, fucking the little short one, evil Steph from last year. This is not about one player. He showed it to us over and over and over again. This is not about, because of Wiseman, he couldn't please. You're not going to post bail for him like that. No, not on my watch.
I'm not posting bail. I'm just
giving the reality.
I'm giving the reality that they drafted James Wiseman and they made it a clear point that they wanted to develop him that season, which immediately tanks any type of ambition to win games.
That was all ownership. But Steve Kerr wanted Wiseman too. He wanted a big two.
And I'm sure after he realized he wasn't good, he was probably like, we're not going to win a lot of games this season because this kid is not good. That's why he said they're not chasing wins. And immediately once Wiseman went down, they started winning at the championship level.
But not chasing wins tells you from the beginning of the season he was not trying to win. And he did make similar statements about Clay. He didn't even think they could beat the fucking Celtics last year. There's no way he thought the season without Clay they could really compete. Bro, they were all like, we didn't know Steph would be this good. Come on, that's a fucking fail. The man goes on and says Steph can't be in the same category with Kevin Durant and fucking Kawhi Leonard. And you're telling me this is a great coach who says that about Stephen Curry? The man doesn't even fucking know what he has on his team.
I mean, I've been critical of Steve as well.
Did he not say those things?
He did say those things.
I was critical of him. I don't know how good we'd be if we ran a bunch of pick and roll. Like, bro, this is not a great coach. This is not a great coach. If you want to say he's great at defense, you can say that. I wouldn't. But there's no way you can call this man a great coach.
I just disagree on that. He's not without flaws. He has major flaws, just like every coach does, but
great people don't have major flaws. They have a thing or two that's like, okay, this is their weakness. He has major flaws in my opinion that have cost them. You put fucking Azili in a fucking game 7? Why? We both agree he's extended series longer than they needed to go.
Which ones are we talking about?
That they've played, right? Not going small early enough in series, right? This all goes back to adaptability. But I'm just saying the result was, why didn't you just do this sooner? Whether it's put the ball in Steph's hands, whether it's go small, whether it's whatever he did. Like, even if you put that in the vein of being, not adapting, what was the result of that not adapting? What did it cost the Warriors? See, ultimately what everyone does is they look at the result and say, oh, but he won. Yeah, but the fucking process to get there was flawed.
Potentially.
Not potentially was. I mean, if you play an extra game because you don't want to play Steph Curry an extra 5 minutes and now the series goes longer.
That's a bad decision. That's a bad decision for sure.
Right. It's not potentially. We have examples of this.
And there's no coach in the history of the NBA that's like a perfect slate, never makes bad decisions ever.
He makes them regularly though. Like Pop, he said, and then doesn't own them. Pop said, yeah, I shouldn't have taken Tim Duncan out of the game. Right? In game 6. Owned it. Done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Owned it. He never made that bullshit mistake again. Didn't do it again. We don't see the same shit over and over and over again. Nah, He's not great. Not great. I'm sorry. I will die on this hill. I will actually fight Justin over this, but Justin doesn't fight women, so we won't fight. But I would fight. I would. But we'll move on. In fact, no, because I respect Justin. I respectfully disagree, but I really, really disagree, disrespectfully, but not disrespecting you, just disrespectfully disagree.
Well, can't agree on everything.
We actually don't agree on a lot more these days than otherwise because we disagree very much so on the Heat and the Nuggets, key players, what that series is going to look like. And, I don't like to doubt and question Justin because he has way more basketball knowledge than me, just superior. But I don't agree with him, y'all. I know.
on the finals appearance? On the finals preview?
Yeah. Is there any more we have to say about the Warriors? We both look forward to the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think Jordan is getting traded?
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually, meaning it may not happen in the offseason, but in season?
Yeah. I do not think he will be a Warrior by the end of next season.
So it's always been a Warriors thing not to do trades mid-season. And I don't know if that will continue with the new GM, but I just feel like if they're going to bring someone else in that's new and they have title aspirations, the earlier you do that, the better.
Mm-hmm. And the last two of the last 3 seasons they have, 2020 they got Wiggins, 2021 they stayed pat.
Yeah, but not in years where they were actually planning to compete.
True. Well, last year they planned on it and then it didn't go that way, and then they pivoted and kind of just said, okay, we'll just take Gary back instead of, for Wiseman. So I don't know.
And Gary was also a player, though, that's already been on the team, though.
For sure.
So it's a different thing. But in a year where they're planning to compete and have to integrate, we saw just what happened with the Suns. Can we think of a team that made that many changes and went all the way, or a key change like that, and then went on to win it all?
I think the Rockets did that one year. That was just such a anomaly, though. It doesn't happen really ever, so we'll see.
Yeah, the question is sort of, I guess, what the deal would be on the table, right? And if waiting gets you a better deal, and a lot of that is dependent on contracts and things like that. So look, the Celtics just ended or got eliminated from their series. Very weird series. Don't need to get back into it, but Heat go up 3-0, then lose the next 3. Thought the Celtics had a chance to complete history. Didn't happen, but what a crazy ass series. But Jaylen Brown is the name that everyone is talking about, I don't know. I think Jaylen Brown is a conversation for another day in terms of if he may fit with the Warriors and what that would look like. Right. But we don't know if he's going to be traded. We know that he's eligible for super max money, and that's a question Boston has to answer. My guess is that they won't pay him the super max, but that they will try to extend him. Boston's the only team that can pay that to him though. So it's if they don't want to give it to him, that may be enough to disgruntle him to leave, but it's not holding out for that is going to be any better, because if they don't want to pay it, he's not getting that anywhere else. But if he's not getting it, that might be enough to make him say, well, trade me, because if you don't, I'm leaving, in free agency. Right. So, and then in that case, it's going to be more incentive for Boston to try to trade him earlier, I suppose, because, he has less value the less time that's left on his deal. Also a reason to maybe sign him and then have more, So I think Boston has interesting decisions. They're also a team like the Warriors that will be affected by the CBA rules. So people have all of their eyes on Boston. But you've pointed out teams like Orlando, Toronto is another team that people are talking about a lot in terms of having assets that the
Mhm.
Warriors may want to trade for. We've heard OG, we've heard Pascal. Some people have brought up Chicago, with Zach LaVine. So, I think once we get it's sort of hard because right now this is all just like speculation.
Mhm.
So I think when we have like more to go on, we can do a deep dive into players, fits, who the Warriors should potentially pursue, things like that. But right now, we don't know.
Right. We have no clue. It's
We have
all
no clue.
just a
But
bunch
I
of
do think some kind of trade is going to happen. And who knows? It may not be Jordan Poole. It just feels like Jordan Poole is the most likely. And we did talk about that at length. And not just because of his contract or his value, but because I don't know if the Draymond and Poole situation is really going to be better ever.
right.
Enough to make it really good vibes on the team.
Right.
Right. And yes, there are players who play together that don't like each other, but they don't all experience public
Mhm.
fights like this where the world is able to see and, all the other stuff that comes with it. So I don't know. I don't think it's happening.
I don't either. Like you said, you don't really see that happen a lot, and you don't see it with two players who are such a big age difference. Um, so in normal circumstances where Draymond can kind of be like that older brother mentor type of guy holding Jordan accountable, that dynamic is likely gone at this point. We've seen different clips throughout the season of Draymond trying to talk to Jordan. He kind of brushes it off, or it's just not the same. Whereas in 2022, there's other clips of Draymond like really getting into Jordan, holding him accountable defensively, and Jordan just taking it all in and accepting it. So if that isn't there, it's just not likely that the team itself and Jordan as a player will be able to perform at his highest level, for them to be able to, make it good vibes and go for a championship again. So it's unfortunate, but it's just, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, but I also think the other thing to be said is like Draymond's leadership style may not work for everyone. And I think the Warriors need to learn to accept that, and deal with that. Like, I think I do. And I don't say this just because of like basketball. I say this in every aspect of the world. Businesses have to change because of new generations. And the old ways of leading, the old ways of talking to people, those kinds of, they don't fly. They don't fly. I deal with it in the workplace now with people under me. Like that, like tough love. And I'm not saying you can't have it and that it doesn't work on some people. What I'm saying is it's not universal across the board, but less and less so with generations we're seeing. I thought the quotes from Jordan where he's just like, I mean, if you have to always yell to get your point across, like those to me, like, yes, there's stuff between him and Dre, but like one of the reasons it was said that like, no one thought anything of it when they were first going back and forth is because that's what Dre and Jordan do. But I guess my point there is that maybe Jordan never appreciated that ever. You know what I'm saying? Like there becomes a point where it's just like that shit wears on you and you don't want to keep hearing it. And I think there's like a mentality with, I don't know within the Warriors, but I know amongst the fan base, like, like Jordan needs to just humble himself and take it. But I am a firm believer personally. I am. And I'm saying this as someone who struggles with tone and can be like a Draymond, that you have to know how to like switch up your message and deliver things in a different way to be effective. Um, and Roz had reported earlier, that a lot of the young players, like they're told to look at Draymond as a leader, but they don't know why. Right. And I think that kind of stuff matters moving forward while you're transitioning. Cause like, yeah, he's going to still be on the team, but like you have to have team harmony and team unity. And that there has to be some acknowledgement on like Draymond's impact on that. There has to be. And that's why I also think about what players you're going to bring in, right? Because people talk about someone like a Jaylen Brown. He just doesn't strike me as someone who's gonna like tolerate
Mhm.
Draymond shit. They've already had like back and forth before in the media. Like Dre's like, oh, I know we got in their head. He's like, he sounds stupid or like whatever. I don't want to misquote Jalen, but I remember
Mhm.
like I just right. But if you bring in someone like Jalen, he's going like even if he's new, he's gonna be a big piece to what they're gonna try to do.
They got into it in the finals.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right. And I'm not saying that players can't put things behind them. That's not what I mean. But I'm just saying certain personalities, right? Like even KD, you know, Draymond in his face, like yelling at him. Not every star
mhm.
is gonna like be okay with that, you know?
Yeah.
They're just not, and none of those players are on the level of KD. But I'm just saying, just not all personalities are gonna be welcome to that.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I guess throughout the years, it's kind of where Steph steps in is the kind of like the opposite of that. And, like I said, we've seen clips this year where, like I said, Draymond will say something to Jordan will brush it off, but Steph will come right back over after Draymond and deliver the message in his way, and it'll be much better received. So, it's another one of those things that Steph kind of got to clean up. He kind of has to put out a bunch of fires for the team. That's just been his role in addition to all the load that he has to carry throughout all these years. And I guess it's just the reality of the team as it's currently constructed.
A reality that Draymond made and
Yeah.
makes harder.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the approach will be. And also, like Draymond had a really great relationship with Bob Myers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he got a great relationship with Dunleavy. And the reason I bring that up is because, like, it matters. It matters because if he doesn't view Draymond as needed or as favorably, right? Like, Lacob does love Dre. I would actually say that might be one of his saving graces that like Lacob is so into him because, you know, when everything happened with Jordan, like the feeling among the organization, it wasn't like just players or young players. Like he's worn on a lot of people within the organization from top to bottom. And so you just don't know, like, I guess my point is that when you have that goodwill built up with someone like a Myers or someone who's like goes back with you. Bob drafted Draymond, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might have a longer rope with him than you might someone else. That's all I'm saying. And so I think, it's just gonna be interesting to see. But I don't think Poole and Dre can coexist. And like we've already discussed, you can go back and check out the last episode. I think because of that, that means Jordan will be traded, which I think is unfortunate, but we're not going to go back through that. But I do think the Warriors do have to like get a handle on Dre. I do. Like, I don't think he can just keep going on the way that he is. Allowing him to go on the way that he is why a punch even happened to begin with.
Yeah. You just hope that he gained some insight from that situation in order to like make sure internally that he doesn't get to that point ever again. But like you never know with him. Because we've had situations like this before with him, and he's the next thing came up, and then the next thing came up. So yeah.
I mean, how remarkable is it that did you see that Twitter video where I think it was I think it was 95.7 the game. They had like an event or something. They were somewhere and they were like, show of hands of like who wants Draymond to stay and who wants him to go. Did you see that?
No.
Oh yeah. They were like in a room. It was like two of the hosts from one of the shows. And it was like kind of like a clap-o-meter or a loud, one of those noise, like not like a scientific survey,
Mhm.
but like, so people were like, yeah, it was kind of like lukewarm, or maybe a little louder than that. It wasn't in the room. But then when it was like, who thinks Draymond Green should be traded or go? They were hella loud. And that's like in the Bay. That's what I'm saying. That's not like us here, you know?
Mhm.
That's like people in the Bay. And like they were even talking about like how they were just shocked. They
That's true.
couldn't believe it. But I think that's representative of the divide and how people feel about Dre at this point. I don't think it's just fans. I think I think that's top to bottom, you know,
Mhm.
like how people feel.
He's a very polarizing player, both on the court and off the court. So it's not really surprising that that's kind of the sentiment around him and whether or not he should be on the team.
Yeah, but I just don't think a few years ago you would have had like a big round like that from like the Bay
Right.
about Draymond leaving, And like to me, that's crazy to me when you think of all he has contributed, right? That people could feel that way about you. If you would have asked me 4 years ago,
Hmm.
right?
You pretty
Like,
much, you pretty much got to go out of your way to turn people off of you like that, and he essentially has done that. With the whole podcast and just loving LeBron and Clutch and all of that stuff. That's definitely turned a lot of people off, and it just seems like he's so different from what he was in the early years of their dynasty, where he was pretty much giving the F you to anybody that wasn't a Warrior. Now he's very much embraced the Clutch, Turner, volume, all those different things much more, and it's almost like he's putting the Warriors to the side while he's, what I'm saying, this is my job, but this is what I love to do type of stuff. And that is like it's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And then on the court he's still a very effective player, but he's not in his prime anymore. So a lot of people are kind of turned off from him in that front as well. So it's surprising, like you said, looking back like 4 or 5 years ago, if you would ask yourself, would this be the case? You would definitely say no. But after experiencing it, it's like, yeah, I'm not really surprised people want him to go. Some people want him to go.
mm, mm, mm. Well, the NBA finals begin tomorrow, Justin. And we have Denver and we have the Heat. And most people are picking Denver. I haven't decided what my pick is going to be. I actually think it's going to be a close series. I don't think it's going to be. And by the way, close to me doesn't mean it goes 7, but I don't think Denver is going to handle Miami like the way people are suggesting. Um so I know the odds are highly in Denver's favor, but yeah, I mean, I think if Denver wins, I think it's like in 6. Um no less than that. I don't think it's going to go less than 6 games. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it because the Heat have shown in every series that they're able to go into a building and win on the road. Now, this is a different challenge with the altitude, and also you have less rest, but I don't think anybody was too terribly banged up on the Heat, you know. I know Jimmy had something the last game, but I don't remember if it was something serious. Gabe Vincent was out for a game, but then he came back and played and still seemed relatively effective. The interesting question is Tyler Hero, because they're saying he could come back in this series. And what, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But they could be getting another lethal shooter back in, Tyler Hero. So I just, I just feel like looking at anything that transpired in the regular season for the Heat at this point is foolish. So
Mhm.
when people talk about what was done in those regular season matchups, I'm not one of those people who's just like, forget about the regular season. It doesn't matter altogether. But I think with the Heat advancing all the way to the finals, we have to stop looking at what happened in the regular season
Mm.
to analyze what this team is going to do now.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
No, I agree on that. As far as the injuries, I think Jimmy had that major, well, not major, but he had that ankle injury earlier in the playoffs that took him out for a game. Then he played on it, and then I think he tweaked. I don't know if it was the same ankle or not, but he tweaked something in the Boston series, and Gabe Vincent had an ankle thing too. I mean, they should be fine, but you never know. Like cumulative things like that can add up over time. Um, but yeah, I would throw the regular season matchups out of the window. I think that was before trade deadline too, so it was a lot of players playing for the Nuggets that aren't even on the team anymore. Um, and
Kevin
obviously,
Love went to the Heat.
right, Kevin Love is on the Heat now. He'll probably get some run because the Nuggets are a bigger team than Boston. Um, yeah, it's just completely new, kind of going in blind a little bit. You can kind of project matchups and see where both teams have advantages, but so far what we've seen is the Heat are a completely different team than they were in the regular season. I think they averaged the least amount of points in the league in the regular season, and now they're just like shooting people's doors off. Like they got just multiple deadly shooters right now. So the Nuggets, but yeah, you gotta just give the Heat a little bit more credit in comparison to what they were doing in the regular season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, role players always matter, but I feel like in this series, they really matter. Like,
Mhm.
I want to say that Denver has more of a dynamic duo than the Heat because, like, you don't know what you're going to get from Bam, from game to game. Like, he's supposed to be the number two guy, but he doesn't always perform like that. Right. But I
Mhm.
just feel like Caleb Martin has stepped up in a way that, like, if he can continue that into the next series, you have to look at him as like a legitimate number two, even if it doesn't last,
Mhm.
and even if he comes back in the regular season and he's a different player. I'm just saying he played like a number two in the last series, whether you say it's above his weight, whatever you say, but like if he keeps playing like that, right?
Mhm.
Then that's a problem, especially if you do get some Bam games. But the Heat, their role players have just been so good. And you know, there were only 4 games in the Lakers series, so it didn't happen as much. But Jamal Murray is predisposed sometimes to like we saw it when it happened. Like he was cold all game and then just came alive in the fourth in the last series. And then it continued over to the next game. And so it's like, I know I've been seeing a lot of things like, are they just going to try to force Jokic to be a scorer and not facilitate, which he can do. But I don't know
Mhm.
if like they can beat you like that. But I don't know if they can beat you like that over an entire series. Like I just don't know. I think it's like really interesting. And I also think I think Kyle Lowry is going to be interesting in this matchup. He had like only one good game, I think, in the last series, but I think he's a big body. You can at times put on like a Jamal Murray to just like bother him and agitate him a little bit. I don't know if Spo will, but I think you can. Um, and Kyle Lowry can just be annoying. Like he
True.
can be annoying. So like not from like obviously he can still run the second unit and manage them and all of that. But I'm more talking about like what he can do to like the opposing guards, in terms of his defense and things like that. So I think that'll be interesting to watch what he can do in the series. And then I don't know, because maybe like Caleb Martin is like performing so well because Tyler Hero's out. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't try Tyler until you feel like you may need to. I think you know, Vincent and Martin and Struess and Duncan Robinson have been playing well enough that they really shouldn't be losing any minutes. Um, and if you feel like you need an extra boost of offense and you feel like Tyler is in a good spot and he can come back and potentially inject some life, then I would try him then. But I do think you'd be giving up some defense on the ball and all that type of stuff too. So um, I don't know. Denver is just such a big team. It's going to be tough to stop their offense. It's already tough to stop their offense because they have so many weapons, but um, it's going to take some real creativity from Spo. They probably should try to turn Joker into a scorer and make sure they limit everybody else. I just read a stat that was saying like MPJ, his like effective field goal percentage on open threes is like 90 or something. It's something crazy. Like he essentially is a guaranteed make if you leave him open. So can't let him get hot. Can't let KCP get a lot of open shots. Jamal Murray, it might be better to put somebody with a little bit more size on him just because he is a bigger guard. So while I do think Lowry can get under his handle, if they end up running actions for him to get Lowry in the post, I don't know how much Kyle Lowry can affect his shot on those turnarounds and stuff. Like he was kind of killing Dennis Schroeder with those. So maybe Jimmy on him a little bit more. Maybe Martin, somebody's like 6'5", 6'6", can help that too. And really the swing factor is Bam. Like if Bam can limit Jokic in those one-on-one situations and not get into foul trouble and, Jokic isn't killing him for 35, 40 a game, then you severely limit Denver's offense. And then on the other end, if Bam can make Jokic work and actually score inside and use his athleticism and stuff to get to the rim and finish, then you can have some more offensive production from him. And it takes the pressure off of Jimmy, Caleb, and all these other guys to have to go nuclear to match Denver's offense. So I think this is a
So
Bam
Bam
series.
can, he just won't do it over a whole series, right? And so
Right.
that's really what it is. You might get that for like a game,
Right.
two
Right.
games, right? So it's like, what else are you gonna like lean into? Their role players have been pretty consistent, you
Mhm.
know.
And they'll get shots against Denver's defense. Like Denver's not like the greatest defense out there. I mean, they're better than they were in the regular season, but
Mhm.
you'll be able to get shots for sure.
Yeah, and then obviously it's always the age-old question of like, is the long layoff gonna hurt them, or is it beneficial for them? Obviously we know it's beneficial in terms of like their bodies and rest and things like that, but just not having played in a while, so we got to see. So yeah, I mean, look, I think this series gets very interesting if the Heat find a way to steal one of those first two games.
Yeah, I do too. I find it. I mean, I'm gonna guess that they don't get one of those two games, but you never know. If they do, is for sure gets interesting. And yeah, then at that point is anybody's series, really.
Yeah, and I'm also not convinced that even if they don't, that Denver is going into Miami and taking a game either. So, which they would have to do to win in 5. They did that to the Lakers, but both you and I don't think the Lakers are like as good as people thought they were after beating the Warriors. So,
Mhm.
um, they had to go to 6 before they got one in Phoenix. So, I'm just not like convinced. I think the Heat are better and a better coach team than like the Wolves. So I'm not sold on, even if Denver takes the first two, that they're going to march into Miami and steal one. I'm sure they'll try, but I don't know that I think that that's going to happen. So there's just not yeah, I guess they could come back and win, in game 6. But that's why I don't see a situation where the Heat don't get 2 games. I just think you're gonna get a game where everything clicks for them, and then there's like another game where just things don't go right for Denver, or like you have Spo's genius, or a playoff Jimmy, or whatever. But I don't think those are all just gonna be one game. I think there'll be enough of that the Heat at minimum get 2 games.
Okay.
I just can't see them going out in 5, but I would not be surprised if this goes 7. I just think that the other thing too is like it's not always like an explainable thing. It's like, and maybe you didn't feel this, but I mean, part of the reason Boston was also so favored is because they should have beaten the Heat, right? But they didn't, and so it's like
I thought Boston was
Denver,
going to beat them. I thought
huh?
Boston was going to beat them in 5 or 6, probably 6. But you're right.
Yeah. And I mean, candidly, I don't know if they would have won, but I do think if Tatum doesn't get hurt, you're talking about a different game. They might still lose, but I think it's more competitive because Jason Tatum steps up in elimination games. He does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And before this year, the only one they lost was to the Warriors, you know? So, and Steph Curry's a different animal, you know? So I feel like it's really, you know, it sucks that he got the injury. I do think that helped the Heat, you know? But I'm not saying that the Heat couldn't have won it. Like, I didn't go in there thinking like, oh, Boston has this. I expected it to be a competitive game. And I just think that Tatum's injury robbed us of a competitive game. And really shined light on Jaylen Brown's flaws that many of us knew already existed anyway. But yeah, it's weird, but it just feels like it's Denver's year. And it also feels like it's the Heat's year. That's the thing. It feels like it's both teams' year to just win, to just get there. You know, Denver a little bit more predictable in they were the number 1 seed and, you know, they had the best record in the West for most of the season. And, you know, so they feel like a traditional, you know, in that sense, though their win total for the season was a little less than some of the other teams we've thought of in the past as like number 1, but generally speaking, they fit the other criteria. They had an MVP candidate, blah, 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 all that stuff. The Heat don't feel like, you know, they should be there, and yet they keep advancing in every round. And that's another reason why I'm just like, I don't know, man. I can't just count this team out no more because they keep fucking winning, yo.
That's true.
Even after the Celtics get an unbelievable win tip-in from, you know, White, and it feels like all the momentum has gone back to the Celtics, right? The Heat still find a way to come in and win the fucking game. I don't know. I think the basketball gods will just not allow it to be a short series.
That's true. I mean, I think a lot of the time, a lot of the wins they've gotten in the playoffs have come like late game, grinded out, and you know, a Spo-led team and a Jimmy Butler-led team is just not going to make a ton of mistakes at the end. Like they might not have more talent than the other team, but they're not going to beat themselves, right? Other than maybe they miss shots, right? But they're going to get decent looks, the best look that they can get. They're going to get to the foul line and they're going to muck the game up. And their defense is going to put a lot of pressure on your offense to be able to generate better or equal offense to them in late games. And we saw the Celtics even last year, like this is always their Achilles heel. They do not generate good offense at the end of games in high leverage situations. Certain defenses can throw them out of whack and they don't have that guy on their team that can settle everybody down and get a good shot every time. Maybe Tatum develops into that, but they just don't have it. And Milwaukee at times, their offense at the end of games is a little wonky because Giannis doesn't have a go-to move he can go to, and Drew and Middleton just aren't that level of offensive player. So, and they were just better than the Knicks, I guess, for most of that series. Brunson was kind of cooking them, but outside of him, they just didn't really have much. So where I run into it with Denver is like Denver has that guy and they have that offense that like is really nothing you can do. They're going to get a shot up, even if it's not a good shot. They can hit the bad ones, and then more times than not, they're going to get a good one. So I don't know if I can see Miami doing the Heat thing to them just because of that dynamic going on, but you can't count them out. And they just got a ton of wings, and now they got a ton of shooting to go with the wings that they didn't have in the regular season. So that could be a potential like issue for Denver's defense because Denver doesn't have the best rim protection. They don't have the best perimeter guys and all type of stuff. So I can definitely see it get mucked up and extended. But my gut is just telling me Jokic is clearly the best player in this series. They have a ton of offense that Miami's going to be hard to stop. They have home court advantage. They have rest. They have health. It's just, I don't know. But I wouldn't put it past Miami to steal 2, maybe 3 games if it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Watching without having any vested interest in the outcome is a really cool way to watch games.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, I need people to get over this whole like ratings thing and stop in either direction. Like it's like, you know, it's probably not going to have high ratings. It probably won't be like the worst rated either. It's just not going to overwhelm. And that's to be expected. And that's okay. And as fans, most fans aren't going to care about that in terms of like us. But it's like all the judging people if they care about ratings, like, bro, these are businesses. And I say that now as someone who's like in TV production and puts on a show, like what people tune into matters. Like y'all may not feel like it should, but it does. And so you can't just expect them not to care if the ratings are not good. And I do think there's a little I just think people are a little misguided when they say things like, well, if the media would talk more about Jokic, bro, Jokic is not interesting. I'm sorry, he's not. He's an amazing player and I like watching him play, but it also doesn't strike me as crazy that he doesn't appeal to the masses. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like he says some things that are funny. He's like Clay in some ways where he's unintentionally funny. He just says shit. But like I find in the post games, Mike Malone is maybe the most interesting one of all of them in terms of what he's saying and what I want to listen to, and then maybe Jamal Murray, because he starts to get a little spicy too. But it's like, they're like, I just always tell people to kind of reflect back on the people who have been faces of the league. That's why I always said Luka's not going to be the face of the league. And people think it's like I'm hating or it's because they're international, because they're white. It's not that, because Larry Bird was a face of the league.
Right.
He was a co-face with Magic. But Larry did like, crazy shit, like I'm going to make these shots. There were all these Larry legend stories. I lived at that time.
He had charisma.
He did shit on the court where you were like, what? And then of course it was heightened by like, this white boy's doing what? Like Luka, I think his play supports it. I don't think his personality right now supports it. Right. Now, that could change, and then he would. But with Jokic, it's a personality and a play style thing. It's just like, it's not going to appeal to the masses. Tim Duncan didn't either, by the way. Right? He's not the first example in NBA history of this. And people are not like, I just don't like the attacking the people who are not into it. It's like something is wrong with them. Like, because you're not a basketball purist or you don't appreciate it. The fuck? You can't tell people what to appreciate. And I loved the Spurs and I like Jokic. So I don't fall into the camp of not liking it and appreciating it. I thought what the Spurs did in the 2014 finals was some of the most beautiful basketball I ever watched in my life, right? So I enjoyed it. But all I'm saying is that most people are not what we are on NBA Twitter. They are casual fans. They are like, they're not tuning in for that. So when people are like, talk about them more, like, I just feel like they sound like politicians. Like, you guys think that you can just make people think something. The consumer, the viewer tells you what they want. There's a lot of businesses that operate media, whatever. They operate on we tell them what they like and what's good. And that's how you end up with wrong poll results in elections when they're so off, right? And that's how shit sometimes end up being off, because it's like, y'all are not listening to the people, And I was having this debate with someone the other day, and I just said, look at Steph, look at John Morant. That's not who the league intentionally started to lean into. It was Zion. It was Zion. It was Zion getting the TV games. They wanted to go all in on Zion. And like Ja just, until he started acting crazy, He just took the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And same thing with Steph. There was no grand plan to market Steph.
Facts.
People just loved him.
That MSG game put him on a map.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like the league can sit there and say, oh, we want to like do this player and do that. But I'm just saying, like, there is an element of like when you have it, you have it. And people recognize the it. It's called the it factor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's why like you love Kelly and you love the other members of Destiny's Child, but Beyonce is the it. She has the it factor.
Facts.
The same shit applies to NBA players and faces. It's not all racism. It's not all xenophobia, bro. Like, it's not. Like, two things can be true. And I don't know why we have to resist so much. You know, oh, if they just tried. Like, come on. I didn't want to, like, keep having the arguments, but I'm tired of seeing it. And, like, I'm actually very experienced in market research and data and trends and studying. I had to do it. Not in media, but I had to do it for, like, business. But the same principles apply. So, like, the total notion that they're just not trying and they don't see it's not correct, people. But regardless, I'm going to enjoy the finals. And you know, hopefully it'll be interesting. I want it to be a longer series because I want NBA basketball on, you know, for as long as it can be. So I'm pushing for it to go long, and I want it to be enjoyable. So I hope that's what we get. And I think, you know, with Jokic and the Heat and the way they play, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be enjoyable for me.
It's going to be enjoyable for me too. Pure hoops. I can't even talk.
Yeah, none of the foul bullshit.
Right. Well, Jimmy might grift a little bit, but and Kyle Lowry. But other than that, it's just going to be basketball at the highest level. You got the two teams left standing. I think it's been a weird season in the NBA. I think we can all say that. But two worthy teams in the finals playing for all the marbles. Can't really ask for anything better, especially considering the Lakers aren't in there.
Anybody but the Lakers. Just like for them, beating the Warriors was their championship, seeing their demise.
The way that it happened, the sweep. Yes.
I'm about to be like, the Nuggets got LeBron planning retirement. Y'all want to keep up these narratives about the Warriors dynasty ending?
Right.
Yeah, Jokic got that boy contemplating retirement.
Facts.
Right. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in with us. We appreciate you. You know, we do these little longer episodes since we away from y'all longer. So hopefully the 90 minutes will give y'all enough until we back. We were supposed to do a mailbag. We didn't. So we make sure we get the mailbag for next time. But appreciate the support. Stay with us. We're around. And yeah, you know the drill. Make sure you follow Twitter, Instagram at Golden Spaces Pod. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're downloading. Make sure you're telling a friend, a family member, and make sure you're leaving us a positive review or a 5-star rating. We appreciate y'all. Until next time, take care.